My name is Karen Dietering Wilson, and many people are surprised when I tell them my skill in trade and business is in the martial arts industry. If I was to begin how all this started, it would probably be from the day I was born. I was always impatient. My mother was led by a police officer because I couldn't wait to come out, and was almost born right under the stars. I was lucky because I come from a family that has 9 siblings. I had an older brother than myself, so I learned to be very independent. I learned how to nurture, and I learned how to be a mom from my mother, being the oldest daughter. My childhood, I remember my mother teaching me how to dance, fighting with brothers and sisters, usually being the oldest. I have to admit that I'm the one that the kids would have to listen to, and if they didn't listen, they had punishment. But down deep, we all loved each other. We loved the outdoors, we loved to camp, and we would never trade that for anything in the world. When I was 16, the biggest thing I wanted to do at 16 is, people always say, well, you know, you walk like a girl, or you talk like a girl, or you run like a girl. I really didn't want to, you know, be classified that as a girl, because I wanted to do hunting and fishing with my father and my brothers. But I also wanted to be more of the dainty side too. So at 16, I told my daddy I wanted to dance. And when this person came up to me and had offered me a job, I decided, yes, I'm going to be a dancer. And when I approached my father was furious because I didn't realize what type of dancing this lady wanted me to do. Needless to say, it was not the best type of dancing that I even had in mind. She guaranteed my father that she would watch over me, and I thought, there's no problem. And coming from a country and moving to the city, I had no idea that she was referring to, I'm just going to come right out and say it, topless dancing. So after my father picked a rose and we had a long talk, and he says, Karen, you are like this rose, and I am not going to have you dancing topless. And I went, whoa, 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 what do you mean topless? And he goes, this is what the person wants you to do. You have to be very careful what people ask, because just because they say they want you to dance doesn't mean that it's ballroom dancing. And he says, and you're like this rose, and you've got to protect the rose. Well, I still have that rose, and I put it between the pages of Shakespeare, and I'm in my 60s now, so just to tell you how much that conversation with my father meant to me and what that rose meant. But anywho, from there, in 12th grade, I met this young man, and I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to be the one. And we did everything together. And I should have realized in 12th grade when I got a part in a play, and he told me he didn't want me to play this part, my boyfriend. And I thought, oh, okay, no big deal. He wants to be with me and not play the part. I didn't want to argue. It was it wasn't a big part anyway. I dropped out of theater in high school. And then the next thing I know, when we're dating, he's saying, well, let's go here, let's go there. He didn't want me to be with my friends. And I looked at it like, well, we love each other, and he just wants to spend all of this attention on me. I didn't realize that that was a signal that I better be running the other way. Even my father, he didn't come right out and say, Karen, this is not the young man for you. I think my father knew down deep if he said that I would just say, no, I'm going to date him anyway, because you don't understand, we're a new generation, and he wants to be with me. It's not that, there's anything wrong with that. Well, as soon as I graduated out of grade 12, I got married, and as soon as I got married, things started to change. And it was more like, well, you can't go to your families anymore. because you have to stay here and watch after me. When I wanted to go back to school, it was like, no, don't you love me? Why would you want to go to school? And I just thought, what's the problem here? Why can't I go to my family? And then the next thing I know, he's telling me what I can and cannot eat. And I thought, okay, I know I put some weight on after having a couple children, and I need to lose weight. But he got to a point where he would count crackers in the house, that if the food was eaten, I'd be punished. And it was an embarrassment to me. So now I'm stuck in this marriage with a couple kids, with a husband that's starting to refuse me to see my family or even contact my siblings, talk to them on the phone. I thought, I was becoming very lonely. So I decided, I need to talk to my dad. I need to talk to my mom. So when I had called them and asked them to come over, my husband got a little perturbed. He says, well, why don't we just go over there? So I called my father back and I says, Dad, do you mind if we come over there for dinner? And my father said no. So we were over there, and of course, it's really hard to say, but he would sit there and say, Karen can't eat this, or Karen can't have this. And my father would just look at him. And I say, Dad, it's okay. He's just helping me lose weight. He loves me. He just wants me to lose weight. Well, as the days and months pass, it becomes worse and worse and worse. And it finally got to a point that I couldn't drive anymore. I had to give up my license. I couldn't think for myself. He picked out my clothes. He told me what I could and couldn't eat. If he called out me on the phone, I had to answer the phone right away. And if I didn't answer the phone right away, he would wonder what I was doing. It got so bad, one night I heard my daughter crying, and he was basically calling her horrible names. I heard slapping going on. Now she's only 2 years old, and this is at nighttime. So I went into her bedroom, and there he was hitting her. So I had asked him, I says, why are you hitting our daughter? She's only 2. And he said she had a nightmare. Well, of course, I said, why would you hit a child for having a nightmare? And lo and behold, which I didn't understand, is the reason why he wanted me to look so small and so tiny was because I married a pedophile. And that was really, really hard to take because he was a school teacher. And I started looking at lockets of girls' hairs in his drawer, like, what are these? And I would question him. And he would come up with all kinds of excuses that the girls gave it to him. And I just, like, I'm a girl. Why would I give a teacher a locket of my hair? And things just continued to get worse, and to a point where he tried to say I was crazy. I was making up all of these things. He's a teacher. He even told me who would believe in a child that just had grade 12 over a teacher. And he just belittled me. And I'll be honest, this doesn't just happen overnight. They take from you a little bit here and a little bit there, and you wake up one day and you ask yourself, how did I end up here? How did I get to a point that I couldn't think for myself anymore? How could I be down to almost 80 pounds? How could I let my kids be in this situation? And it got so bad that I finally went to a doctor and told him what was going on. And to prove that I wasn't crazy, I admitted myself into a hospital. I said, he's not going to have my children. I'm going to prove to him I'm not crazy. And I'm going to try to get my life back. And that was one of the hardest things I had ever done, because I knew the way he was, what was going to happen to my kids for those 2 weeks. Well, needless to say, the Lord works in wonderful ways, because when the 2 weeks were up, the doctors told me there was nothing wrong with me. He says, in fact, we're going to let you go home, and we advise you to find somewhere else to live. Well, when I had called my husband and said I could come home, he said no, I wasn't ready. And I told him yes, I was. And to make a long story short, he called the hospital, not knowing that this whole conversation that took place was already, the doctors were already there, and it was on speakerphone, so they could hear what each of us were saying. And when he called the doctors, he told them that I was threatening to kill myself, that I wasn't ready. How could they let a crazy lady out? And when they came in, the doctors, and told me what he had said to them after our conversation, I says, now you understand what I've been putting up with. And they said, Karen, if you stay with him, you'll be dead within a year. We cannot let you go home back to him. Well, needless to say, I called my dad. I was too embarrassed. And I didn't want him to know what was going on. I was really embarrassed to call my dad to come and get me, because I hid all of this. I did not want anybody to know that I've become this low in my life, that I've allowed a person that I thought, you like to nurture, you're married forever, and I took my vows seriously. But how do you tell somebody that you've come this low, where you can't even make decisions, you can't drive, you can't think anymore, you can't even protect your own children from a person that was like him? I grew up in a family that was a loving family. We didn't hurt each other like this. So I found it very difficult, very difficult. And the day I called my dad and told him, Dad, can you come and pick me up at the hospital? He came right away. I was just, I says, Dad, I've left my husband. And you know what he said to me? He says he finally got my respect back. I'm sorry. Anyway, I hadn't realized that my father had I lost his respect marrying this man. But anyhow, I was fortunate enough, I was able to get away. Found out he had took an insurance policy out of me. And I had to die before a certain age or he wouldn't collect on this insurance policy. I went in hiding so he couldn't find me and the children. I was in hiding almost 6 years. But found out not only did he abuse my daughter, but my son got abused. So it didn't matter. I'm just, thank God that I was able to get out of that situation. And most women do not even realize how much is taken away from them until they leave. He made it like, how am you going to support yourself? Because during this time, he didn't allow me to have a job. He didn't allow me to grow as a person. He didn't allow me to make any decisions. I wasn't able to drive anymore, so I have no way of transportation. How I was able to make it is that back in the early 70s, it just started to come around where they were building shelters for women that were in domestic violence. Because even back then, children had to meet their accuser in court. It wasn't behind closed doors like it is today, which I'm so thankful that a lot of the laws have changed. But you think of domestic violence just for women that are poor, not educated. That's not true. There's women out there that are doctors and women that are lawyers in very professional careers that are in situations and they're asking themselves, how did I get here? And I used to wake up almost every night asking myself the same question. And when I look back, if somebody would have told me that the reason why my ex didn't want me going into the school play, or when I would say, well, let's go to a friend's house, well, no, I made arrangements and I wanted you to be with me because I love you. I didn't realize then that that was the first step to having control over you. If I would have known back then what I know today, and somebody says to me, if I want to go out with my friends or meet my family, well, no, let's do this together, I'd start running the other direction, because that was the very first sign that he wanted control. And if I can't say anything else to young women out there, if you've got a young man that has to know every move, has to know who's calling you, what you're eating, start picking out your clothes, start making little suggestions like, well, you know, I really like you in this, or I really like your hair this way. My best advice to you is to start running the other way, because these are the very first signs of domestic violence. Because once they have that control and isolation, then they start working on you. Like, well, you're no good. You can't do this. What's wrong with the meal? Don't you know how to, take care of the kids? Or don't you know how to clean right? Because no matter what you do, it's not going to be right. And I don't want a woman to look at themselves, because I looked at myself saying to me, well, why does he feel that the meal's not right? Or am I not making his favorite dish like his mother? Or, did I do the laundry wrong? You're always second guessing yourself. And that's the next step they start doing. Then they start feeding you that you can't, besides not do things right, you're incapable of coming up with anything right. So then they start beating you down. And after that, mentally, they start the physical stuff. And it's just a complete nightmare. I'll be honest, one night I had to spend the night in the doghouse, literally with the dog, because I was no better than the dog. And, so they make you feel like you're nothing. But, I told myself I would never, ever get back in that situation. So I moved out. It took a lot of strength and courage, because now I'm not only beaten down, I'm only weighing about 70 pounds. No job. I've got 2 children. What am I going to do? It was very hard. I was starting to second guess myself. And I told myself the only way I'm going to have to make it is to start at the bottom. And I don't want a woman to look at themselves, because I looked at myself saying to me, well, why does he feel that the meal's not right? Or am I not making his favorite dish like his mother? Or, did I do the laundry wrong? You're always second guessing yourself. And that's the next step they start doing. Then they start feeding you that you can't, besides not do things right, you're incapable of coming up with anything right. So then they start beating you down, and after that, mentally, they start the physical stuff. And it's just a complete nightmare. I'll be honest, one night I had to spend the night in the doghouse, literally with the dog, because I was no better than the dog. And, so they make you feel like you're nothing. But, I told myself I would never, ever get back in that situation. So I moved out. It took a lot of strength and courage, because Now I'm not only beaten down, I'm only weighing about 70 pounds. No job. I've got 2 children. What am I going to do? It was very hard. I was starting to second guess myself. And I told myself the only way I'm going to have to make it is to start at the bottom, work up. I took 2 steps forward and I'd end up 10 steps back. And eventually those steps started to be more ahead than backwards. I started getting back into martial arts. I started learning how to defend myself, so if this happened again, I would know at least how to block, how to prepare myself more to get out of domestic violence. Statistics show that when a woman's leaving is the most dangerous time because men don't want you to go. They'll kill you, and that's the bottom line before they'll let you go. And that's where my life was. So I'm saying there are steps you can take. That's one of the programs I teach women in domestic violence, what you need to do, how to do it. Of course, if your life is threatened right then and there, then you need to get out right away. Don't take the chance. Get out. I mean, if he's at work, get out. Don't sit around and wait for anything. Just get out. There are shelters out there today. There are people out there that is willing to help and listen. It's not like when I was there. If you can take any type of self-defense class, I would recommend it, because the classes I teach teaches you how to get out of chokeholds. So most women know their husbands, what makes them angry, so you try not to make them angry. But if they decide they're going to get angry anyway and start choking you, I teach them how to get out of that choke. You think of domestic violence just for women that are poor, not educated. That's not true. There's women out there that are doctors and women that are lawyers in very professional careers that are in situations and they're asking themselves, how did I get here? Every time I look at my poetry awards, and I've got a couple books out there, I think about my last boss telling me that I need to take basic writing skills again. And all I could do is, every time I look at these and I think of my book that won the 2007 Children's Book of the Year, and I own my own publishing company, all I could do is look at him now and say, well, that's funny because I own my own publishing company. And he didn't know what to say except, yeah, what's the name? And I told him. So even in the workplace, women, I'm telling you, do not let them intimidate you, because you know your worth. And because they want you to feel bad about yourself, don't let that happen. Because I've been there through marriage, and I wasn't going to take it through work. But make it even better, from poetry to black belt. I'm a 6th degree black belt, and I'm very proud of that, because it takes a lot of years and a lot of practice and time and energy, and just, I mean, you have to write papers. So this means a lot to me, because it tells me I'm a master now, and I'm going to work for my grandmaster. Nobody in my life will ever tell me that I'm not worth anything, because I'm worth everything to the Lord, I'm worth everything to my family, and I'm worth everything to myself. And if nothing else, I owe it to myself to be the best I can be.